When you signed this agreement with the unions over at the Social Security Administration, did you do it purposefully to undermine President Trump on his way in the door?
No, I did it to sustain the big customer service delivery improvements that this greatly depleted agency had made in the course of the year, and to try to staunch the attrition rate and the fact that so many are eligible for retirement. You know, the reduction in staffing is really hurting a lot of seniors in every one of your districts, a lot of people with disability, a lot of our poorest people that are on SSI. I did what I did in order to better serve the American people.
But when you set this agreement, knowing that the presidential election had already been decided, did you call Mar-a-Lago and say, hey, what's your opinion on this?
No.
Did you ask President Biden to reach out to President Trump in a matter of transition and say, hey, which way do we want the next president to be able to administer the employees that are under his purview?
All right, folks, welcome back. If you've ever wondered what people really mean when they talk about the deep state, or if you've been waiting to watch a lawmaker actually step up and do what voters sent them to Washington to do, this exchange is exactly that moment. Representative Byron Donalds steps into the spotlight and delivers a clinic in accountability. He goes head-to-head with former Biden administration official Martin O'Malley, and honestly, it's hard to look away. This all unfolds during a House Oversight Committee hearing focused on the federal workforce, starting with a simple question that taxpayers have been asking for years. Why are we footing the bill for government offices that sit empty? But very quickly, it escalates into something much deeper. What you're really watching is a confrontation over who truly holds power in this country. Is it the president chosen by voters, or a permanent class of unelected bureaucrats locking in contracts on their way out the door to tie the hands of whoever comes next? O'Malley attempts to dodge with legal technicalities, hiding behind union rules and contract language, but Donalds doesn't let it slide. He slices through the excuses and lays bare how the administrative state shields itself from accountability and ignores the will of the electorate. Trust me, this one is deeply satisfying to watch. Let's break it all down.
Can you please explain the difference between the definitions of telework and remote work?
Yes, remote work is 100% from a different location and can include living entirely thousands of miles away. Telework is having the ability to work anywhere from 1 to 5 days a week at a remote location.
Okay. Can an agency force a federal employee to telework? Like similarly, can an agency force a federal employee to show up for work?
Yes, and we saw that happen during COVID-19. There was forced telework that happened, and they should have the ability to force an employee to show up to work. But when you have problematic components that are baked into the cake for the new administration that prevent, such as deputy commissioners at SSA, from having that authority because of a collective bargaining agreement, that's arguably counter to the law.
Do you feel it's within the purview of the President of the United States to set the work schedule for federal employees across the board?
I do, and in particular telework, that's what the Telework Act of 2010 requires.
Ms. Cross, do you agree with that assumption that the President of the United States has the broad authority to set work requirements for federal employees? Well, you can't think about it now, Ms. Cross. We're here. We're on the fly. Do you think it's under the purview of the President to set work requirements for federal employees? Since essentially in our system of government, we have a unitary executive, and the President of the United States is the executive branch.
Sure.
Okay. Mr. O'Malley, do you agree with that assessment that the President of the United States has the unilateral authority for setting work requirements for federal employees?
No, under the law, he has the ability, but
Mr.
it's not
O'Malley,
unilaterally. He has to abide by the law. At least in a republic, you abide by the law.
Mr. O'Malley, do you believe that the President of the United States is the executive branch? Whether it's President Trump, President Biden, President Obama, President Bush, Herbert Walker Bush, President Reagan, do you believe that the President of the United States is the unitary executive and is the executive branch?
Yes, and he has to abide under the law. He has to obey the law.
So you mean to tell me that the President of the United States doesn't have the ability to set work requirements?
I'm saying that he does, but he has to do so under the terms and the rule of the law. And so, and contract law and things contained in agreements that are negotiated under the law are things that the president has to be mindful of and should be, and should be guided by.
When you signed this agreement with the unions over at the Social Security Administration, did you do it purposefully to undermine President Trump on his way in the door?
No, I did it to sustain the big customer service delivery improvements that this greatly depleted agency had made in the course of the year, and to try to staunch the attrition rate and the fact that so many are eligible for retirement. You know, the reduction in staffing is really hurting a lot of seniors in every one of your districts, a lot of people with disability, a lot of our poorest people that are on SSI. I did what I did in order to better serve the American people.
But when you set this agreement, knowing that the presidential election had already been decided, did you call Mar-a-Lago and say, hey, what's your opinion on this?
No,
Did you ask President Biden to reach out to President Trump in a matter of transition and say, hey, which way do we want the next president to be able to administer the employees that are under his purview
I
as the
certainly
unitary
did not.
executive?
I worked for President Biden. He appointed me, and I was confirmed in a lopsided bipartisan margin by the Senate, and I executed the duties that I was assigned at Social Security to better serve senior citizens, better serve people on SSI, and people with disabilities. That's what I did, Congressman.
My counter argument to you, Mr. O'Malley, is that whether it's whatever president we're talking about, they all have the same duty to serve the seniors who were promised something on Social Security, and that mission is going to be executed regardless of party, regardless of president. But, sir, what you did was to essentially do a workaround of the incoming administration. But I'm going to come back to you later. Ms. Grezler, I'm going to come back to you. You stated earlier in your testimony about we do have an issue with some of the federal employees who are doing work, union work, on federal government time. Can you expound upon that?
Yes, unfortunately, we don't have any more data on that because the Biden administration stopped collecting that. But if you use what the Obama administration, those figures, and convert them to today's salaries, taxpayers are paying over $300 million per year to pay federal employees to step away from the jobs they're hired for and to instead go do union work on taxpayers' dime.
Mr. Chairman, if you will oblige, what is some of do you have an idea of some of the work that's being done on federal government time for the unions that they're a part of?
That can include negotiations. It could include lobbying Congress. It can include helping employees to file grievances or unfair labor practices if they have their telework policies taken away from them.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that it's in the interest of this committee and, frankly, of the United States going forward that we find out exactly what work is being done while employees are being paid by the federal government that is not within the purview of the job that they were hired to perform. I yield back.
Hold up for a second. Did you hear how they just defined that? Remote work apparently means you can be completely off-site, living halfway across the country, never stepping foot near the building. Telework, on the other hand, might mean you show your face once a week if you feel like it. So let me ask you this. If a federal agency is headquartered in Washington, D.C., but the employee is living in Montana and never shows up, who exactly are they working for? The agency, or their own comfort? Because at that point, it starts to look less like public service and more like automatic deposits hitting a bank account. This is where Donalds starts tightening the vice. He's laying the groundwork to prove that these agencies don't even control their own people anymore. If management can't require employees to come to work, then what they really have isn't a workforce at all. Watch Miss Cross right here. You can actually see the gears grinding to a halt. Donalds asks what should be the easiest question imaginable. Does the president set the work schedule for the executive branch? And suddenly she freezes. She's scanning the room like someone might rescue her. I need to think, she says. Think? The Constitution already did that thinking for you. Article 2 isn't vague. The president runs the executive branch. This hesitation is the tell. These officials have spent so long operating without consequences that they genuinely don't see themselves as answering to anyone. Donalds eventually forces the admission out of her, but the pause says more than the answer ever could. That moment tells you exactly how Washington views power. Then Martin Alley steps in, and this is where it gets slippery. Donalds poses the same question to him. Is the president the unitary executive? Does he have the authority to direct the workforce? Alley's response is a masterclass in bureaucratic evasion. He says the president has authority, but only as long as he follows the law, and by law, he means contract law. See what just happened there? He quietly placed a union contract on the same level as the Constitution. His argument boils down to this. Yes, Millions of Americans elected a president to run the government, but a deal signed with union leadership overrides that mandate. Sorry, voters, paperwork beats democracy. That's the mindset on full display. An unelected official telling a member of Congress that negotiated agreements outweigh the executive authority of the President of the United States. It's almost surreal. And then comes the moment that blows the whole thing open. Donalds corners him. Ali admits that right before walking out the door, knowing full well the administration was about to change, he rushed to sign a brand new agreement with the unions. He knew Trump had won. He knew a new team was coming in. And instead of letting the incoming administration decide how to manage its own workforce, he locked them into restrictions designed to make reform nearly impossible. His excuse is almost insulting. He claims he did it to serve the American people. He says it was for seniors. Give me a break. This wasn't about seniors. It was about insulating the bureaucracy from accountability. It was about making sure the next administration couldn't clean house, couldn't demand performance, couldn't even require people to show up to work. That's not public service. That's sabotage. It's a political landmine planted on purpose, then dressed up as compassion. A trap left behind for the next president, wrapped in feel-good language. Donalds isn't fooled for a second, and neither should you be. And just when you think it can't get worse, the final revelation drops. Taxpayers are shelling out more than $300 million every single year for federal employees to do union work while on the clock. Let that really sink in. You go to your job, you pay your taxes, that money gets sent to Washington, and instead of processing your VA claim or issuing your passport, a government employee is being paid to lobby Congress for more power, more money, and less oversight. Donalds is absolutely right to demand an investigation. This isn't inefficiency by accident. It's a system designed to protect itself. We are literally funding the machinery that resists reform. Byron Donalds was on fire here. He pulled the curtain back and showed the trick. Unelected officials quietly signing deals to strip authority away from the president you voted for. That's not democracy. It's an end run around it.